Have you ever had a moment that completely changed your life? A single act of kindness that rewrote everything you believed about people? Well, this story will touch your heart. But before we begin, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that good people still exist. It was a gray, rainy afternoon in downtown Seattle. Sarah Miller sat alone in a quiet corner of a little diner called the Blue Cup, staring at the coffee she couldn't afford to refill. Her eyes were tired, not from sleepless nights, but from endless worries that kept her awake. Rent was due, her car had broken down, and she was juggling 2 part-time jobs just to feed herself and her 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Sarah wasn't used to asking for help. She'd always been strong, the kind of woman who'd rather skip dinner than let anyone see her struggle. But that day, even the air felt heavy, pressing on her chest as she opened her worn leather wallet and saw only $8.47 left. The check on the table read $15.20. Her heart sank. She looked around nervously, hoping no one noticed her panic. The diner was almost empty, except for an old man reading a newspaper by the window, and a tall man sitting 2 tables away, black jacket, gray scarf, the kind of face that looked both mysterious and kind. Sarah called the waitress, stuttering softly, "Could I just pay for the coffee? I'll skip the pie." But the waitress smiled politely and said, "Sorry, honey, that's already on the bill." Sarah's fingers trembled as she reached for her wallet again. She didn't want to cry, not here, not in front of strangers. Then she heard a calm voice behind her. "I got it." She turned around. It was the man in the gray scarf. He smiled, gentle and confident. "Please, let me take care of it." Sarah blinked, confused. "Oh no, that's not necessary," but before she could finish, he handed his card to the waitress. "Add her bill to mine, please." The waitress nodded, swiped the card, and walked away. Sarah felt her throat tighten. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. The man shrugged with a warm smile. "Maybe not, but I wanted to." He stood up to leave, placing his hat on his head. "Have a good day, ma'am." And before she could even thank him properly, he was gone, out the door, disappearing into the rain. For a moment, Sarah sat frozen. The kindness of a stranger had just lifted a weight off her shoulders. She smiled for the first time that day, not realizing that this single act would change her life forever. That evening, Sarah picked up Lily from the daycare. "Mommy, why are you smiling?" Lily asked, clutching her little stuffed bunny. Sarah laughed softly. "Because someone was really nice to Mommy today." At home, Sarah wrote about it in her small journal, something she'd started to remind herself of life's small blessings. She wrote, "A stranger paid my bill today. I don't know his name, but he reminded me that kindness still exists." But destiny wasn't done with her yet. 2 days later, Sarah was at the grocery store, trying to stretch her last $20 on milk, bread, and cereal. As she waited in line, she noticed a commotion near the door, people whispering, pulling out phones, pointing at someone walking in. It was him, the same man from the diner. Only this time he wasn't wearing a gray scarf. He was surrounded by cameras, reporters, and security. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she realized who he was. The stranger who paid her bill was Ethan Walker, the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in America, a billionaire known for staying out of the public eye. Her hands went cold. Why would someone like him even notice me? As she stood there, frozen in disbelief, Ethan looked around, and their eyes met. For a brief second, his calm smile returned, just like in the diner. But then he was gone again, moving toward the exit, trailed by reporters shouting his name. Sarah didn't say a word, but her heart raced. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of their story. That night she sat by the window, rain tapping against the glass, her daughter asleep beside her. She opened her laptop and searched. Ethan Walker News. There it was. Headlines everywhere. Ethan Walker spotted at local diner before major charity launch. Billionaire seen helping local businesses quietly. Sarah whispered to herself, "It can't be a coincidence." Something told her that fate had drawn their paths together for a reason. And she was right, because the next morning Sarah received a call from an unknown number, a call that would pull her into a story far bigger than she ever imagined. Sometimes one phone call can turn your whole world upside down, not because of bad news, but because destiny is finally knocking on your door. Before we dive in, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this part of the story will warm your heart in ways you didn't see coming. The next morning, Sarah's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was packing Lily's school lunch, a peanut butter sandwich, and a small apple, when the screen lit up with unknown number. She hesitated. Probably a telemarketer, she thought, but something deep inside whispered, "Answer it." "Hello?" she said softly. "Good morning," a man's calm voice replied. "Is this Sarah Miller?" "Yes. Who's this?" "This is Michael. I'm calling from the Walker Foundation." Sarah frowned, confused. "I'm sorry, who?" "The Walker Foundation," he repeated kindly. "It's Mr. Ethan Walker's charitable organization. Mr. Walker asked us to reach out to you personally." Sarah's heart stopped. "Wait, what?" The man chuckled gently. "He said you met him a few days ago at the Blue Cup Diner." Her mind went blank. Yes, but why would he?" "Mr. Walker was deeply moved by your kindness," Michael continued. "He didn't want to embarrass you at the diner, but he asked me to call because he has an offer for you." Sarah's knees weakened. She leaned on the counter for support, trying to process what she'd just heard. "An offer?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Walker recently started a program to help single parents rebuild their lives. He said he'd like to meet you again, to talk about an opportunity that might change yours." For a moment, Sarah couldn't speak. Her voice trembled. I don't know what to say." "Just say yes," Michael said warmly. "Mr. Walker doesn't usually meet people personally. You made an impression on him." After they set up a meeting for the next day, Sarah hung up and stood in silence, her heart pounding. Was this real? Could a stranger, a billionaire, really care enough to reach out to her? The next afternoon, Sarah arrived at a tall glass building downtown, Walker Innovations headquarters. She wore her cleanest outfit, a simple white blouse and navy skirt. Her shoes were worn, but polished. The receptionist greeted her kindly. "You must be Ms. Miller. Mr. Walker is expecting you." She was led through sleek hallways until she entered a large office overlooking the city. Ethan Walker stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the skyline. When he turned, his familiar smile returned, calm, warm, and kind. "Sarah," he said softly, walking forward. "It's good to see you again." Her breath caught in her throat. I don't even know what to say. You didn't have to do all this." He chuckled. "Maybe not. But sometimes life gives us a chance to make a difference, and we shouldn't ignore it." He gestured for her to sit. "You reminded me of someone I once knew, my mother. She used to work 2 jobs to keep food on the table after my father passed away. When I saw you at that diner, I saw her in you, strong, proud, tired, but never giving up." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That's the kindest thing anyone's ever said to me." Ethan smiled gently. "I'd like to offer you a position at one of my community centers. Steady income, flexible hours, and a place for your daughter to attend preschool for free." Sarah gasped, covering her mouth. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Ethan said. "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me one thing. When life gets better, you'll help someone else the way I helped you." Tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks. She nodded. "I promise." The next few weeks were a blur of new beginnings. Sarah started her job as a coordinator at the community center, helping organize programs for struggling families. Lily joined the preschool and made new friends. For the first time in years, Sarah felt peace. But there was something else growing quietly between her and Ethan, an unspoken bond. He'd visit the center often, checking in, asking about her progress. Sometimes they'd share coffee and laugh about the most ordinary things. He never made her feel small. He never treated her like a charity case. Instead, he treated her like an equal, someone he genuinely respected. Still, Sarah couldn't help but wonder why her. Why had he chosen to help her out of all the people in the world? One afternoon, while they were reviewing a project proposal, she finally asked, "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said, leaning back in his chair. Why me? Ethan paused, looking down for a moment before meeting her eyes again. Because years ago, when I was young and broke, someone did the same for me. I was sitting in a cafe, couldn't even pay for my coffee, and a woman paid my bill. I promised myself that if I ever made it in life, I'd pay it forward, starting with someone who reminded me of her. Sarah's heart fluttered. That's incredible. He smiled softly. It's life's full circle, Sarah. Kindness never disappears. It just finds new faces. Weeks turned into months. Sarah's life transformed completely. She saved enough money to rent a better apartment. Lily's laughter filled their home again, and every time she looked out at the night sky, she whispered a silent thank you. Not just to Ethan, but to God for sending him her way. And yet, the story didn't end there. Because one evening, while closing up the center, Sarah received another call. This time from Ethan himself. Hey, his voice said warmly. You busy tomorrow evening? Not really, she smiled. Why? There's something I want to show you. It's personal. Sarah hesitated, her heart fluttering with curiosity. Sure. Where? I'll pick you up at 7, Ethan said. Dress comfortably. It's not business. It's something I think you'll want to see. The next night, he drove her out of the city to a small town where the stars shone brighter. They stopped at an old building, the paint peeling, the sign faded. This, Ethan said softly, was the cafe where that woman once paid my bill. It was the day that changed everything for me. He looked at her and smiled. Now it's your turn to be part of someone else's story.